All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. If you are here, you are in the right place. We are going to be starting in just another minute or two. Give a couple more people a chance to come on to the webinar. Make sure everybody gets here. If at the end, and then we'll have Q&A at the end of this call. And yes, we are recording it. So we will, we're going to go ahead and get started in just about less than a minute, and I'll go ahead and get moving on the content here. For those of you who are going to be at ASD in Las Vegas this week, make sure that you come by and say hello. We're going to have our suite that we'll be at, and then we'll also be speaking at the actual convention center. Make sure that you stop by and say hello. I'd love to meet you. I'm never too busy to talk to other sellers. So unless I'm literally getting ready to go someplace, I always love having the opportunity to share and talk with other people. So we'll go ahead and get started. Whew. Okay. Been a crazy day and crazy week. Little thrown off because my travel plans got a little moved around this week. So one of the things that I've been talking about with a lot of sellers is the problem of not having enough sourcing capital to buy the items that they really want to buy. And feeling like that lack of sourcing is going to be impacting their business in the ability to grow, because they can't seem to get out ahead of themselves enough to really get the profit moving. They see that we're making progress, but we're not making the progress quickly enough. Now, as you're in the beginning stages or as you're in a growth phase, it's really important that you be checking in with your business to make sure that you're not putting money down a black hole. So what we want to be looking for is, remember, if you want to bring home the bacon, you got to have a pig. So profit, inventory turn, and clear goals. So you should be looking at, of the things that I'm buying, are they selling consistently? So if you see in your inventory health report that there's items that are still in there, then, for 90 days plus, then that could be an indicator that you really need to look at. Are you sourcing correctly before we go out and try to find more income? And we're not going to be talking about debt today. We're going to be talking about ways to actually generate cash without a debt or equity situation. So when you're looking at your business and you're saying, I know that if I put in X amount of dollars, I can get Y out, but I don't have access to that X amount of dollars. We're going to be talking about what you need to do in order to get some of that capital. And then as you grow, the ways that you do this is going to change over time. And so we're going to be doing is not only looking at the sourcing capital and how can we generate cash today, but how can we generate healthy habits that are going to make it so that we're able to consistently have that solid cash flow going forward. So one of the things that we want to look at before we even kind of get into whether or not you have the cash is to remember that the value of your time, and that you can never get your time back. So it's very important that as you're looking at these options that I'm going to present in front of you, you will also look at, is this the best use of my time? You always want to be looking at the most profitable activity that you can do in your business, and then you want to do all of those things first. So before you get on Facebook, before you read a forum, we want to make sure that everything is shipped, that you've spent the money that you have allotted for sourcing, and you've done that in a way that maximizes your profits and is going to make sure that you're going to see that money come back into your business. So you want to make sure that you're looking at using your time effectively. Just because your time does not make it free, because your time has value as an entrepreneur. So as you're thinking about what you're doing in your business, I want you to imagine that you're paying somebody $50 an hour to do those items. If you were imagining that you were paying somebody that much money to have those things done, you would make sure that everything was as efficient as possible. So focus. You want to make sure that we're staying focused. And what I mean by that is what is working for you right now. in your business. So if you're doing really, really well in retail arbitrage, one pitfall is to say, well, everybody else is talking about private label, so I need capital so I can private label like all these other people. But in reality, if what you're doing is working right now, you're getting the margins that you want, then we want to double down on that. We want to take care of our four walls first. So we want to make sure that the basic necessities of our business is covered by the income that we're bringing in. And then once you have those things really solid, then we're going to be looking at bringing other things on. So when you're looking at generating cash first, we want to make sure, are we generating the cash that we're generating, are we going to be using it in a way that's going to give us the best bang for our buck? Now, I know we're going to get to the three things in just a second, but the importance of making sure that you manage your cash flow is going to be increasingly important as you grow. So keeping a rolling cash flow report is very important. Watching your inventory turn. What I mean by that is making sure that, things that you think are going to sell the next 1 or 2 months, if they're still there 6 months from now, that means that maybe you bought too deep, or maybe you bought something that was too long tail. And then we're going to talk about watching our margins and why that is so important. So we're going to talk first about ways to generate quick cash. So ways to get cash in your pocket this week. Because sometimes things come up and you need money today. And sometimes you need money so that you can hit your goals for your long-term sourcing. So, if you're in our Momentum program, or if you're a mentee that's working with us closely, you're going to have, inbound goals, specific things that you're going to be looking at to hit. So you might be looking at how can I generate cash so that I can build those things. So the first thing that you want to do is look at, so we're going to be talking about, milestone one and two businesses first, and then we're going to move on towards things that you can do as you get bigger. So the first thing is fairly obvious. Sell something that you don't use or you don't need. Have a garage sale, sell an old iPod, do all of those things first. Now, the other thing you can do is you can buy garage sales and sell on Craigslist. That's something that we did to generate our first couple $1,000s in cash, is we really focused in on, buying things that we could get cheap at garage sales, selling them on Craigslist and eBay, because Craigslist doesn't take any fees and you get the money right away. eBay they take fees, but you get the PayPal money right away. So if you need cash today, then that's buying things at garage sales. Like, for example, a jogging stroller. If you go to a nice neighborhood, you can get a jogging stroller, maybe the double ones for $40, $50. But if you clean, just wash them up and clean them, and then you can sell them on Craigslist for usually over $100. So, there's ways to get cash right away from there. Now, some other things that you could do is you could offer to do a garage sale on a commission for busy friends or for an organization. So if your kids go to a school that is needing to do fundraisers, you could offer to do a big book sale or or like a community garage sale, and the benefit, and just say, I'd love to donate my time. I just ask that I can, if I can have the option to buy things before everybody else, that would be great. You can pick out the books that will sell well on Amazon, and the school, you'll still be able to generate a healthy profit for the school. So there's lots of churches you can do this for, youth groups. See if you can use the community and not use them in a take advantage way, but offer a service that's really of value, and that you can take either a percentage or maybe you get a discount, something that you can sell very quickly and turn around on Craigslist, eBay, or some maybe inexpensive items that you can buy for your Amazon business. The other thing you can do is to offer a service to pick up garage sale leftovers. So, I have a truck, so I could just put in Craigslist, didn't sell everything that you wanted to. I'll come pick up all of your junk and take it to the dump. And so what you can do is, there's going to be things in there that people are going to be giving away because they don't want to take it back into the house, but it does have value, and especially in the books area. So you could start to look at those kind of things as well. Now that does take a lot of physical work, but it is an option to think about. So, and you don't have to not just specifically offer that. You could pet sit, you could babysit, you could house clean on Craigslist. There's a lot of different things that you could do. Again, watch your personal safety when it comes to anything on Craigslist. But, there's a lot of different things that you could do. You could even go into a store, a mom and pop store, maybe that you have a relationship, and offer to sell their clearance on consignment on Amazon. So maybe they give you the inventory, you sell it, you give them a good chunk of the sales once it sells, but it gives you an opportunity to get inventory maybe without having to pay for it up front. Maybe you can pay for it on the back end, especially if it's somebody that you've built in a good quality relationship with somebody. You can post book wanted on Craigslist, make offers for garage sales with books in the posting. That was something that we really did a lot of. So every week, I would look for garage sales that said that they had books and things that I knew I could resell. And I would say, is there any way I can come get those now from you? Or is there any way you can take a picture of the spines of the books and I can tell you which ones I want? Sometimes you have to go up and ask for things, but it's a very great way to do that. Now, one of the things that we've been recommending from the very beginning is you're running out of sourcing money. So let's say you know that you need to get to $5,000 a month, but right now you only have $500 a month to start spending. Well, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that with retail arbitrage. So what you would do is you'd set aside maybe 100, 150 of that total $500 that you have to spend on inventory. You're going to take that first inventory, double down on what's already working for you, and then we're going to look for books that we can sell at a high margin to help increase the total number of sales that we have to help generate that cash. So, books wanted. Books are a great way to do that because the margins are so high. However, you do need a lot of them in order to generate those consistent sales. So when you're looking at how can I generate quick cash, sometimes that's because we need to really look more specifically at our profit margins, at our ROIs. And then if we're really going to maximize the ROI, then that's really going to make the biggest difference. So, and that really kind of goes into number 2. So the second one is to cut expenses and to maximize ROI, because every time we cut expenses, it really does maximize our return. So every expense that you have, every piece of software that you have, every list that you have, every service that you have, even if it's something that I offer, that now every time you add something new to that, a warehouse location, labor of a warehouse employee, then that's going to be adding different thing, base cost for your business. So where, 6 months ago, maybe it only cost you $500 a month to run your business. Now maybe it costs $12,000 to run your business, or maybe it costs $2,000 to run your business when you add up all of the different fees that you have from everything. So now, in order to just break even, I'm losing money if I don't spend a certain amount per month because I have to be able to generate those base costs. So you want to look first before we start, digging around, is start looking at the bank statements. We want to look at PayPal subscriptions, and we want to look at potential cuts. Are you paying for services that you're not using, or are you using services that you're if you're not using the services that you're paying for, is that something that you really need to be paying for? Because if you have that money that's being used, and it's not, it's being taken up, that could be turned into capital. So even if it's just a $50 a month list, then if you're investing into that list and you're not actually buying items off of that list at a good margin, then that money is compounded in the number of times you could have turned it over to get more and more money. So we want to look at ROI for lists and done-for-you services, because any kind of done-for-you service is usually a premium. We know that because you're paying for basically white glove service. So anything that's done for you, we want to look at, is that the best use of our money? And in some situations, it definitely is. And in some situations, you might say, maybe I jumped the gun and I'm not quite ready for that. Another thing that you want to look at is paid groups. If you're paying for groups and you're not getting value out of them, maybe you've outgrown the group where it used to really help you, but now maybe you've passed where the majority of the other members are, and you're looking for a new group. You might want to look at that. Because one of the things that's really important, I love this quote, I can't even remember who I got it from recently, but it said, education without implementation is just entertainment. If you're taking courses, but you're not acting on the courses, if you're being on webinars, but you're not actually physically taking action on what you're learning, then it's actually just entertainment. It's no longer education because you're not implementing what you're spending your time on. So we want to look at the lower your base expenses, the less sales that you need in order to turn a profit. So if you have a lot of services, if you have a lot of expenses in your business, then that means that you're going to have to work just that much harder in order to just barely break even in your business. So something to really look at and really consider. Now, the third thing is inventory turn. We want to look at that. So if you need cash, one of the ways that as you get bigger to really look at that and to find that extra sourcing capital is to reprice your items, especially so if your payout's on a Wednesday and it's maybe Saturday or Sunday, if you can reprice some things, get them to move, you'll get that before the payout. So, we kind of look at repricing as a really important part of maintaining our cash flow. And, as far as when do we reprice something, anytime something is in our inventory over 90 days, that's when we look at, this item is a little bit more stale than we expected it to be. So let's see if we can reprice that item and get it to move a little bit faster. So, and then we want to be looking at the prices. If you don't have a repricer, we want to be looking at those prices consistently, because sometimes if you adjust by 5 or 6 cents, you have access to the buy box where you didn't before. We would also want to look at enhancing any listings that you have a lot of. Now, we don't want to enhance a listing if you just have one of it, because remember we said your time has value. So, but if you have 100 of something that you are really counting on moving and it's not moving, then it is worth the time investment to really fix that listing, make sure the pictures are perfect, make sure the description and the bullets are perfect, all of those things. And then the other way, again, is to start listing things multi-channel. So maybe you can look and see if you can sell it for close to the same price on eBay. You can even look at selling it on Craigslist, depending on the item. Maybe you could pull back 1 or 2 and sell them locally. So, there's lots of different ways to have that inventory turn become an important part of your total cash flow over the long term. Now, we want to make sure that going forward, we're avoiding the cash flow crunch as we move forward in our business. So we want to watch how deep you buy. So, especially on things that are longer tail, so things that are more niche, it's really important that you buy small test batches. And this is true whether you're buying private label, you're buying wholesale, retail arbitrage. We want to do small test batches of anything that we're buying duplicates on, and then see how it sells through. And then that's how we're going to make sure that we don't buy too deeply. Because if you remember, if the Lego set sells on average 50 a day and you buy 5,000, unless that price changes or something else radical happens in the market, it's probably going to sell 50 tomorrow. Just because you have a deep supply doesn't mean there will be more buyers. The other thing you need to really watch is national clearances. We're getting ready for the next clearance. You're probably starting to see the spring toy resets starting to come up. You'll start to see clearances that are nationwide. And so you really want to watch, and especially in July and June, July, August, there's a lot of national clearances, which can be really, really tempting. However, if it's easy fruit, if it's low-hanging fruit, that means that everybody's going to be coming after it. So you want to be thinking, how can I find inventory that has more barriers? How can I find difficult that's more a little bit out of the way? I have to work a little bit harder to get it. That's what you really want to be looking at, not at how easily can I get inventory. Because the easy inventory, everybody's going to be jumping on. And that's when you see price tanking. That's when you see that everything that you buy, the price goes down on. If you're seeing that consistently, then I would assert that you are buying items that are the fruit's a little too low hanging. You need to start looking at some different stores. You need to start looking at items that maybe have a barrier to entry. So you don't need to spend $10,000 getting approved in grocery, but, you could look at, is there a category that would make it a little bit, that maybe has a little less competition in it? Or maybe I need to really look at creating some bundles for these items that are on clearance, and they have to be bundles that make sense for the buyer, not for you as the seller, but, things that make sense together. So we want to look at how deep we're buying, and we want to look at when we're buying, is there going to be a predictable predictable price tanking? Because I see that oftentimes is what's causing these cash flow crunches is you went heavily invested into one item or into one sale, and now all of your money is tied up because you're waiting for those prices to rebound. So when you're in a cash flow crunch like that, where all your money's tied up in inventory, then that's when it's time to really go back to basics. So it's time to go back to books. That's times when it's time to go back to really simple, shallow buys, shallow, high margin buys. What I mean by that is you don't buy more than 3 of anything, no matter how awesome it is, and you buy things and you really focus in on that high margin. So one thing that, that is, I think, overlooked in our community, that there are still items that you can get at 100% and even over 100% ROI. It is completely possible. However, you do have to work a lot harder to find those items. So when it comes time to a cash flow crunch, that's when you have to say, I don't have the capital, because usually you have, either time or money, right? So if you don't have the money, then you have to say, well, I'm going to invest extra time to really look for items that have a higher margin, because I only have so much capital to invest. So I need to make sure that every dollar that I invest in that inventory is getting the most possible attraction, has the biggest bang for your buck, and also that is going to be something that the price isn't going to tank on, and that my risk is really diverse. Because, if you are only doing, $1,000 a month, and you invest $500 in a private label item and that doesn't work, that could completely kill your business, because all the money from that cash flow is pinned on the hope of that working. However, if you wait, 6 months to a year to when you're more financially healthy to start looking into something like that, then, if you have $5,000 a month to invest in inventory and you spend $1,000 on a private label product, then it's still going to hurt if it doesn't work out, but it's not going to pull your business to a screeching halt. So when we're looking at our buying decisions, we want to think about, when I'm looking at a new shiny object, when I'm looking at a new course, a new sourcing method, is the strain on my cash flow? Is taking the money away from items that are already doing well, from strategies that are already doing well, is that the best decision? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. So one thing that we talk about growth a lot in our space on Amazon. We don't really talk about throttling very often. And one thing that I've learned very much in the last year, sometimes pulling back is good. Sometimes you are going to need to pull back on your growth, because if your business grows too fast, it will strangle your business. And so if you can feel like things are really going well one moment, and the next moment feel like everything's falling apart. So sometimes you do have to throttle yourself to say, this is what we need to do. And this is something that, I'm seeing now that maybe I need to do a little bit more of, and, to pull back a little bit. Now, when you pull back on your growth, when you get a little less aggressive on growth and you focus on other things, it allows you time to create systems, and it allows for you to create for cash flow, for reserve. Everyone always talking about multiple streams of income, and multiple streams of income are very important. But the first couple months that you're doing this, maybe even the first year or two that you're doing this, if you're trying to do all those things at once, it's not necessarily going to work. So you might not have time to do any of them well. So it might be better for you to say, you know what? I'm going to pull back on my growth a little bit, have a little bit of a cash flow reserve here, a little pocket of cash in case there's an emergency. And that's going to be my security instead of having an extra income stream. And then once I get to a certain level, then I know I'll have the resources to really look at bringing in a new income stream. So those are some of the things we want to look at. We also want to look at moving to higher margin items. I know I've said this a couple times, but moving to a higher margin item is going to help to higher margin items, higher return on investment. So you're getting more towards that 100% or above. Then that's going to allow you to maximize your team. So we got to a point where we were doing the maximum amount that we could with the people that we had. And we had a choice of either looking at getting a little bit more aggressive as far as the ROI that we were looking at, or hiring more people. And we went with hiring more people, and we found it just didn't work very well for us. So what we did is instead we looked at pulling back, slowing our growth a little bit. So our revenue growth looks like it didn't do very well last year. Our revenue growth looks like it plateaued a little bit. But in reality, we actually made more money because we were focusing in on higher margin items. So by doing that, we were able to keep the team that we had now, and we're able to make sure that we get the best value for our labor dollar as well as our investment for the actual inventory. So we kind of double dip on the savings there. Because you're not going to, so the idea behind that too is that if you have higher ROI items, then you're going to need less total number items. And so in order to have the same revenue, right? So, or in order to have the same profit. So since you're going to have less items, that's how you save on the labor, is because you're not having to pay to process or prep as many different pieces. So the other thing that I see that is a problem is that a lot of times we see, we're going to have a cash flow crunch. We feel like, the money is what's holding us back from our growth. And in reality, more revenue isn't the problem. In fact, more revenue can actually worsen a cash flow crunch. And you might say that's not possible, but hang in there with me. Because we want to make sure that we're maximizing our labor. We're getting the best value out of our labor dollar. We're getting the best value out of our capital. And we're getting the best value out of your time. The time that you spend packing boxes, the time that you spend sourcing is time that you could be watching your grandchildren play, is time you could be spending with your children, is time you could be spending with your mom. Your time is incredibly valuable, so it's important that we stay focused on making sure we get the best bang out of that dollar. Now, how can revenue make a cash flow crunch worse? Is when people think that, you know what, my problem is I don't have enough money. So if I just get more money, it will fix everything. In reality, the problem is that as you try to get more money, a lot of times what will happen is people will, they'll lower their standards. They'll start looking for a lower return on investment. They will get a little sloppier about making sure that they're not buying as deep, because they think if I could just make more total gross sales, then that would mean that there's more money. But if you started out at 100% ROI and you were doing $5,000 a month, that's a really good, healthy living. Now, if you take it down to 30% ROI, now your gross sales are going to look like you've had huge growth. It's going to be very impressive in a screenshot, but you actually are going to be working 3 times as hard, and you're actually going to be making about the same as you were before. And because now you have to have a lot more of these low margin items in the warehouse in order to keep them moving, you actually have to have a bigger total investment in your inventory pool. So now we've kind of double dipped on the expenses. And because we're looking at, having to process more items in order to have the same amount of sales, the same amount of money, or the same amount of profit in our pocket, now our labor costs, now our prep service fees have increased. So when you're looking at how can I fix this cash flow, we want to make sure that we pull back enough to say, all right, I need more money, but it's not necessarily the top line that you're looking at. We may or may not need more gross sales, but what we do need is we need more profit. So that's how we look at, generating there's some ways to generate some quick cash. But then the second and third things are really, how can we lower the bottom line to make sure that we're actually getting more profit at the end of the day? And that's what we want to be guiding our decisions as we're making those buying decisions going forward, is not how can I get more total revenue, get a bigger screenshot, but how can I have more money to pay my mortgage, more money to take my kids to Disneyland? And, the true cost of shiny objects is really, I think, understated in our community. So the amount of time, the amount of capital, and the amount of labor that we spend trying to chase every new thing that comes out can be very expensive. So whether it's something that I put out or anybody else puts out, you want to think, do I really have the time to do this well? Even if that item was the thing that was going to be your $1 million idea, if you don't have the time to implement it well, it's not going to get you the $1 million anyway. So instead of being distracted by it, we want to say, okay, you know what? I'm missing an opportunity right now because right now I don't have the capital. I need to spend my capital on my inventory right now. And so I am missing that. So that gives me drive in order to say, I need to stay focused on what's going on. I need to stay focused on what can I do in order to make sure that I'm getting everything that I can out of my business. But I want to stay focused on what's working now, because while that new thing might turn out to be really great, it could or could not be the answer to my problems, right? It could also be a really big distraction that keeps me from moving forward and having that steady growth. It's not a coincidence that so many $1 million business owners say that their favorite book is The Tortoise and the Hare. The hare is going to be jumping from thing to thing. Anytime you feel yourself jumping from thing to thing, you want to remember you're now the hare. You don't want to be the hare. We want to be the tortoise. And yes, people might laugh at us. Yes, people are going to tell us we're missing out on the best things. But in reality, we know who wins that race. And you deserve to win. So don't sell yourself out, and make sure that you're staying focused on doubling down on what is working for you now. Focus on that. Go back to basics. Be willing to do the grunt work nobody else will. And that's going to be how you get that consistent growth over time. And then someday when you're having other people do things, when you can start flying first class, all of those things, you're going to remember that it was because you stayed the course. And you were willing to work harder than everybody else. Because if you want to live like no one else, as Dave Ramsey says, you have to work like no one else. Work like no one else so that you can live like no one else. So it really comes down to staying focused on what is working right now for you. And that's going to be a big help in watching your cash flow. So the other thing is systems equal cash. So don't skimp on time to develop those systems. I was just talking to somebody who is doing very well in a private label brand, but she's manufacturing everything by hand herself. Very much like an item that could end up on Shark Tank. But so what we were talking about when we met was, how does she get to scale? How does she get to be that $1 million brand? And one of the things that we were working on together is, she really needs to take the time to develop her systems, even if that means that she has to slow her growth. Because, she's like, well, I don't have time to create the systems because I need this opportunity, I need this opportunity, I need this opportunity. But when we really looked at it, even if she had gotten if a bunch of orders, if a 500-piece order came in for her today, she wouldn't be able to fulfill on it because she hasn't taken the time yet to build the systems to make sure her production is scalable. So it's the same thing for us, even though we're not producing a particular item. Even if it means slowing your growth a little bit, take the time to really create and perfect your systems, because true growth comes from treating your business like a business. So once you start to really look at, if I was paying somebody $50 an hour to do this job, is this the way we would be doing it? Because it's really important that we start to free up some of your time as an entrepreneur, because when our head is down and we're working, there's all sorts of opportunities that whiz by us that we never see because our heads are down packing boxes. We want to be able to have enough time to pick our heads up and say, okay, this is, a trend in the marketplace that's coming. I need to anticipate for that. Or, I see that I'm missing out on this other great opportunity. I want to go see if I can go grab that opportunity. It's really important to build those systems so that ultimately you have the freedom to build the business that you wanted in the beginning. Remember, it's very easy to build yourself, start out with the idea of building a business for freedom and then ending up with a prison cell as a business. So let me know there's question and answer time here. So if you have any questions, I'll answer them. Even if they're a little off, if you have any questions at all, I'll go ahead and answer those. We have a lot of resources as I'm waiting for any questions to pop in the question box. We have a lot of resources as far as inventory turn, enhancing products. We have a whole course on Amazon SEO, a whole course on hiring and training VAs. That's part of our Unstoppable Amazon Academy. And if you use promo code 14 days, you can try it for free for 14 days and see if it's a value. If you're not going to use it, don't buy it, because it's just money that's going to be out of your business, and you want to spend as much money on investing in good quality inventory as possible. But I do think that it provides enough value that it does pay for itself. We also have a reimbursement sheet, which also can be a great way to get some cash. If you haven't been looking at making sure that you're getting reimbursed for items that were refunded and not returned, then that can be really a great way to kind of get some cash. We got over $1,000 back by looking at some of those items from January that were the customer was credited, but the item was never returned. So we have some support material for that. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, so we have one question that says, most of the stuff I found right now in stores are pretty much the same price or even lower price. How do you come about sourcing at 100% ROI, like you said? So when it comes to finding the high ROI items, it really comes down to scanning everything, because it doesn't make sense why, one character is going to sell for so much more than another. So if you're familiar with like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for a long time, it might not be the case anymore, but the turtles were like $8.99. But because of the way that Mattel or whoever Hasbro makes those toys, when they're shipped to the store in a pack of 12, there might be 10 of the turtles of the total of the mix of the 4 different turtles, and then 2 bad guys, and then 1 or 2 of these other small characters. But if there wasn't very many of Splinter the Rat or April, who was also part of that series, so April was selling consistently way over everybody else. So you're looking for the hard to find items. So what you're going to be you have to scan everything in the beginning, because you need to scan everything to start to develop the eye of what's going to be something that sells at over a retail price. So when you start really doing that, you're going to start to get an eye for those things. So for example, if somebody moved from Arizona, and they moved to maybe North Dakota, and they wanted to make an ethnic dish that's from here. So there's a big Vietnamese population. There's obviously a big Hispanic population here. They probably have enchilada sauce, and they have refried beans in North Dakota in every grocery store. But are they going to have maybe some of the dried peppers that you want, maybe some of the more specialized sauces? So that's when people will pay extra to have the item delivered for them on Amazon. There's a spice that my dad really liked. He got used to using it in Louisiana, and it's in every Walmart in Louisiana. But in our state, there's nobody who has it. Amazon is the only way to buy it. So for a long time, we were buying it wholesale at more than what you would buy it for at Walmart. And we were still making a profit on it because it was really hard in other areas of the country. So we're looking for, it's all about supply and demand. If you haven't seen the movie Supply and Dance by We the Economy, I highly recommend it. We're looking for things that are selling above retail price because there's more demand than there is supply. If you think about Christmas, that's always what causes that spike in price. So does anybody else have any questions, or does that answer your question? Let me know. But finding those higher ROI items definitely comes down to just being able to take the time to really look. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. So it does take time, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be work. So you have to, and the other thing is to look at stores that not everybody else is at. So I personally don't recommend that new people necessarily start at Target, Walmart, Big Lots, Tuesday Morning, because as we see in the Facebook groups, there's a lot of people sourcing there. So what does that mean? That means there's a lot of competition there. And so do you already want to start your do you want to start your business in an area where there's a much higher level of competition? You want to find something that's weird. Our job is to bring the weird things to Amazon. For a long time, we were selling barf bags, vomit bags that were pretty. That's not something that's a super in-demand item. So, but we were able to charge a premium because we were the only pretty barf bag on Amazon. We have since not stopped selling that item because I use it because it's a really great example. But, find something that you need. I get really sick when I'm pregnant. So it was something I looked at for myself. Anytime that you're looking for something that, if you're a left-handed lacrosse player, or if you love, spinning wool into yarn, then find those products that you are already a customer for, that you would already pay a premium for, and look for those items. And, and then we had a question if I go the wholesale route, how do I know what products to sell on Amazon? It's going to be very much the same thing. Needle in a haystack, going through a lot of numbers. I don't recommend that people start out in a wholesale without at least selling at least doing 2 to 3 shipments of books at the absolute minimum. I'd love to see you do 1 to 3 months of retail arbitrage first, because when you buy at wholesale, your risk goes up, because now we're not buying 1 or 2. Now we're buying 6 or 24 or 72 of an item. So, if you're going to still need to go through all the numbers, and even in private label, you're going to have to go through some products, and as far as looking at a lot of different options to find the ones. So there is not going to be like a one size fit all, like easy peasy macaroni cheesy kind of answer. It really is that's bringing the unique items, finding those items where the demand outpaces the supply is really the magic in this business. So riches in the niches. Don't forget that, riches in the niches, and really embrace that. With wholesale, it would just be, if you want to break it down to the basis level, whether it's retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, then it's really going to come by running numbers on a lot of different items. And then you need to test items in different categories at different rank points to see what works best for you. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, the next question is, do you suggest buying an LLC for Amazon selling just starting out? So that's something you're going to want to talk to an accountant or lawyer. I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV, but usually, the first year you probably are okay as a sole proprietor. I would recommend that you get business insurance right away. Once you become profitable, usually accountants will say it around that $40,000 range, that it's time to get into an LLC for some of the tax benefits of that. But you really want to get with your accountant on that. I would say until you have at least $5,000 in sales, I would hold off on that for right now, because you want to make sure this is something that you're going to be doing long term. And getting an LLC is very easy. You can do it at any point later in your period. You don't have to start over with a new Amazon account. You can transfer it to the LLC. That's not a problem. So the next question is, I'm using an app for sourcing, which comes in a bundle for bookkeeping. I know it's not necessary for me to have the bookkeeping for my things on Amazon, but do I really need the scouting app? So it says, do you have any recommendations? This is the most expensive app I'm using right now, even more because I don't optimize the benefit yet. So you do need a scanning app. You need a scouting app. Do not buy blind, especially. I don't buy blind. I still look up everything. I still run the numbers on everything. And I've been doing this for a very long time. And I've run more numbers than you want to know. And I don't do that. So the least expensive scouting app is going to be Profit Bandit. And so usually if people are just starting out, they're trying to watch their total money, then I would say Profit Bandit's the way to go. There are other options like Scan Power and Inventory Lab. I feel like I'm pretty sure Inventory Lab is still less expensive and it has the bookkeeping options. If you are planning on growing quickly, you have enough capital to make that growth fairly quickly, then I would say that it's worthwhile. But let's say if you're at 50% ROI and it's $60 or $40 a month, then you're going to need to sell $120 worth of items in order, or no, you're going to have to spend a certain amount of money. So you're going to have to spend either $80 to $120 on items at that ROI in order to just recoup that cost and sell those through. So if you're looking at, how can I keep my expenses low for the beginning part, you might want to look at just using Profit Bandit. And because when you really need the hard numbers for your cost of goods, that's really going to be at the end of the year. So, you could say that I'm going to use Profit Bandit for 3 or 4 months. And then when I'm really at the point where it looks like I'm going to be moving, then that's going to be when I move up to the higher price options. So I think that's all the questions. I'll give you guys another second or two to kind of see if you have anything else. I hope that this was helpful. In the Unstoppable Amazon Academy, we have step-by-step tutorials, how to get your first shipment of books in, how to do retail arbitrage, how to do wholesale, very, very much step-by-step. So if you're looking for somebody to kind of walk you through the process, that's really what the Academy is all about. We created it out of working with our coaching students, and the same questions we were getting over and over again, we created into videos, and now it's available as part of our Academy. So I highly recommend if you're starting something like that. And then Rita said, if my time becomes limited because of a day job, do you think the wholesale will work to grow the capital? So wholesale is very time consuming in the beginning. After you get it down, it helps a lot. It makes it so it's much easier for you to grow. However, it's very time intensive at the front end. So it really comes down to using a system. So the first maybe $5,000 you sell, and I think, Rita, you're way past that, but if in the very beginning when you're looking to sell, I want you to just be focused in on, am I able to consistently buy things, identify that they're profitable, and sell them through. That's where I want you to focus on. And then once you've got that down, it's really important that you not stay at that level of understanding. If you really want to scale, if you really want this to be a full-time operation, you're going to need to look at what systems can I put in place so that I can be more efficient in my sourcing. So we can spend $50,000 in a retail store in less than a day because we've created very specific systems, and we share that in the academy. So what I would look at is, you can also hire virtual assistants. So don't, so especially if you have a job that maybe your paid salary, you're already working overtime, then you could have a virtual assistant maybe help you with some of those things that aren't subject to confidentiality. But you could have a VA do things for you, like email wholesale vendors and asking them for the prices. And you could have a VA look for online arbitrage, or run daily, maybe the weekly ads, the numbers on those weekly ads, to see to find you profitable items. You can even send people out to scan for you. So what you want to look at is what's the most profitable thing that I can do per hour. If you get paid $500 an hour, it's probably not going to be the most profitable thing for you to stand and scan for 6 hours. So then what we would want to do is say, how can I have somebody else do the scanning for me at $10 an hour? And then they can bring back the data. I can tell them what to buy, and then they can go back. And that's what our scaling retail arbitrage courses is kind of showing people how to do that. So I think that's the last question again. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to just let you know we appreciate all the time that you invest with us. If there's ever anything that we can do to help you grow your business, it's definitely something that we want to do. If you're part of the academy, make sure you join us in the Facebook group that we have specifically for the academy, and you're always welcome to answer questions there. And if you'll be at ASD, we look forward to meeting you, and have a great evening.